What's up, Hokie Nation? And welcome into another Brent Pry press conference breakdown. And oh boy, this is going to be a fun one. Virginia Tech obviously is coming off of one of the more controversial losses in all of program history. Now they head west to go to Stanford. But before we turn the page, the ending on Friday night, what were Brent Pry's thoughts? Here we go.
As far as the call at the end of the game on Friday night, I received no explanation on the field, no explanation in the locker room. The first thing I heard was what the general public heard at 1:30 that night. A statement that to me was confusing at best. I was finally contacted Monday morning, which was a solicited contact by the head of officials for the ACC. I asked for an explanation and the video that they viewed that merited overturning the call with indisputable evidence. The explanation was there was a loose ball that was touched by a Miami defender who was out of bounds. The video showed nothing new, nothing that none of us hadn't seen already. The words used with me were interpretation and hard to find, which to me, neither one aligns with indisputable. I watched the video that they watched. If it was ruled a catch, I don't see how you overturn it. There's no evidence. If it was ruled not a catch, I don't see how you overturn it. You can't see enough to tell. That's my take on it. I feel for our players, our fans, but we've turned the page. We turned the page Sunday evening in an aggressive manner with our players, with our staff, with our media, with our player parents, with our own wives, with everybody. So respectfully, I'm not going to discuss the last play any further. I'm not going to discuss the officiating, and I've asked our players not to discuss it either. Our focus and attention is on a really good Stanford team that went to Syracuse and beat an upstart Syracuse team.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where Pry clearly is pretty upset about it. But at the same time, he's handling the press conference in the right way. He's being very forceful with what he's saying, but he's also being very reasonable as well. Trying to talk about turning the page, too. I think that's the biggest thing he's trying to get across. Before we do turn the page, though, Pry also talked about, after that statement, the ACC needs to be more transparent with its review process and that he will bring that up at future league-wide meetings. So how do you possibly turn the page to Stanford after, again, one of the more controversial endings in Virginia Tech football history? Here's Pry.
Yeah, it's really shutting the door. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. When somebody asks you about it, you turn the attention to Stanford. Ask me a question about Stanford. We sent all of our player parents a message Sunday evening asking them to join us in doing that. When speaking with your sons, as tempting as it is, talk about Stanford. We've had that message with Travis and our media representatives, with the staff, with our families. We've got our hands full with Stanford on the road, and all of our attention needs to be there, to make the improvements we need to make, to play with the same intensity that we played with Friday night. We've got to pour everything into Stanford.
Before we totally flip the script, there is one more thing about Miami that I want to hammer home, and that is that Virginia Tech, they avoided another numbers violation. On the 57-yard field goal by John Love, they had two number 17s on the field. How can that possibly happen after the Vanderbilt fiasco? Here's Pry.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. First of all, as I mentioned in week one, that call's missed as much as it's called. And clearly the crew missed some calls in the game. And that was one of them. You know, we were fortunate. We had a player come off the field that should have gone on the field for field goal. Miscommunication. He was under the impression we were going to punt. Once we realized we had 10 out, I turned to grab the first trustworthy big body I could find to plug a hole in the front. We don't have a timeout available. If we line up and kick the field goal, it's probably blocked with the position that would have been missing. You take the delay of game, you're going to punt. You run somebody out, they get you for a double number, you're going to take the 5, you're going to punt. So there really was nothing to lose at that point. The hope was they didn't see it, that they won't see it, and they didn't. And we ran Cole Nelson out there, trusty guy with some size and some strength. And he did a nice job, and we made the kick, and they missed the call.
And then how would Pry evaluate Virginia Tech defensively on Friday night? You know, they kept Tech in the game, but they gave up 38 points, kind of that give or take type of deal. Let's see.
I think the disruption was there. The sacks, some TFLs, the takeaways. Thought we played physical. I thought we played very hard. Against a really good group, we still gave up too many explosive plays. If we could get one or two of those back, I think it could make the difference. If you can win the explosive play battle and the turnover battle, you're going to win the game 95% of the time. And, we had too many missed tackles, not to take away from the Miami skill, but too many missed tackles that, were opportunities for us to be, drive stoppers or certainly minimize explosives.
And then what made Kyron Drones as good as he was on Friday night? Here's Pry.
Yeah, I certainly thought he looked much like the Kyron that we all know and, love to watch play. I thought our offense went the way he went and certainly the way Bashaw went. But, there's certainly some throws Kyron would like to have back, and so there's room for improvement there, of course. But the scramble ability, the tough runs, the block on J lanes, touchdown run, just so many things, that demonstrate how hard he plays and how important it is to him and how talented he is. So I thought it was a big step in the right direction for KD.
Flipping over now to Stanford. Believe it or not, well, the Hokies are going out on Thursday, but it's the first time Virginia Tech has ever played a regular season game in the Pacific time zone. So with that being said, how different does this week look? Let's see.
Yeah, we're going to practice early Thursday and get our group out there. And we've got a good plan for Friday. We've got a good plan for the plane trip itself. We've invested in a larger plane with better seating for the guys. Our captains, our O-line, our D-line, we want them as comfortable as we can. We've got a plan for hydration on the plane, for stretching on the plane, for the amount of sleep we'd like for them to get on the plane. And then certainly when we get to the hotel. When we wake up Friday, it's our Friday routine. That's the goal.
And then on the field, the Cardinal are as good as pretty much anybody defensively in terms of stopping the run. They're the best in the ACC, 7th nationally, and they only allow 76 yards per game. Here's Pry on that matchup against Bashaw Tootin.
Yeah, first of all, on Stanford, they're seniors and grad students. They're a veteran group, smart, almost throughout their entire defense. And, they play very physical. They're very sound. They do some interesting things. They're not just a vanilla group, but they do it well. We have to continue to improve in our line play, which I think we've done that for a couple of weeks here. We're straining. Our hats are in the right place. We're finishing blocks better. We're giving Bashaw, KD more opportunity, PJ more opportunity to get a good run started. So we have to continue to do that. I think, take another step with our offensive line play. And let me say this, the tight ends have been a big piece of that. Benji and Harry and their ability get hat on hat and help us create some seams. So the improvement there is going to be really important.
Just one more thing about Stanford, and that is that the Cardinal have one of the more dynamic receivers in all of the ACC, and maybe he's not talked about as much because they're on the West Coast, but his name is Alec Iomanner. Remember that name because he is a future NFL talent. He's the reason why Stanford essentially came back to beat Syracuse and is in the position they are currently in. So stopping him will be crucial. Here is Pry on that matchup against guys like Mansour Delane and Dorian Strong.
Again, I think your comments on their wide receiver, he's big, he's talented, he can run. He is an NFL-type receiver. We just came off a game playing some really talented guys. This guy's skill set is a little bit different, but we'll have our hands full with him. We'll have to have a good plan defensively, and those guys, Mansour, Dorian, and even the safeties at times will have to play very well.
All right, just to wrap it up, couple injury notes for the Hokies. Braylon Moore has been listed as day-to-day, and Laith Ganem likely will not make the trip. Virginia Tech and Stanford, Saturday afternoon at 3:30 Eastern Time from Palo Alto, California. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you very soon.